Hello everyone, this is Hakaym and welcome back to another episode of Funday Sunday, and we are showing off a battle because once again Clan Wars is officially open season, and many of us clans are currently duking it out in Clan Wars, and as usual I am taking out my favorite ship. So I'm gonna kind of talk about Clan Wars this season. I definitely feel like it doesn't feel as bad as last season. I know last season a lot of clans had a lot of issues moving up the ranks, and it feels like it's a little bit better than well, it feels better than last season for sure. So let's first talk about the meta. The meta's changed. Meta has dramatically changed. As far as destroyers, Yu Yang is not particularly a fan favorite. I believe Grosavoy and obviously the Gearing and sometimes the Z52 have taken kind of over that spot. As you can see with our lineup, we have a Montana, Des Moines, HIV, 2 Zhaos, Mosfa, and Grosavoy. And once again, Yu Yang is no longer as good as it used to be, and that's because of its recent nerfs. As far as cruisers are concerned, probably the most notable change, besides obviously Stalingrad, Stalingrads and Mosfas are very popular, is the fact that a lot of clans are starting to run double or triple HIV. And the HIV is, I think, a very strong ship. I think especially once it got its recent buff with the the quick reload on its main guns consumable, it has a very quick firepower and it has very large caliber guns. And also with the fact that it has good HE damage, it has good fire chance, and it has really good speed. As you can see, 43.9 knots, no slouch there. So a lot of clans have started using HIV and Stalingrad. As you can see, the enemy team has a Yamato, triple HIV, a Stalingrad, Shimakaze, and Grosavoy. For the most part, as far as I can tell, double TDs is not always a very common thing. It used to be very common in last season, but in this season, not so much. For the most part, it's generally one destroyer. Not saying it's impossible, but in this instance, it's 2 destroyers for the enemy team and 1 destroyer for ourselves. As far as battleships really haven't changed. There hasn't been any new additions to consumables or anything like that. That's really shaken up. Predominantly, you'll see the Yamato more so than others. There have been mix-ups, or not mix-ups, have been alterations to lineups. The Kurfürst we've seen a couple times, and the Republic is another good choice that some clans go with, and I believe we did try the Republic, and it's not a bad ship. So let's go ahead and talk about what's about to happen, because this is really funny. So HIV, moving out to the far east hand side, and keep in mind, whenever you play a cruiser, generally you want AP first, because if say for a situation happens where you find an enemy cruiser who is broadside, and the HIV is very powerful against enemy cruisers that are broadside to you. You want that AP damage. Now we are now detected there is the enemy HIV not turning broadside. You don't want to give him the opportunity, but he instead actually does have HE opening salvo. That's us. 5 citadels, leaving him very low in health. Our friendly Zhao actually does manage to get a citadel, and there we go, take out the very first ship of the game. And that's why firing AP as your opening salvo is very powerful. Now, yes, of course, you're going to find situations where you do have cruisers more about in, but in situations like that, it can be quite devastating. Yes, RNG was really much in my favor, getting me 5 citadels, so taking out that enemy HIV was extremely lucky. Now, as you can see on the minimap, we're currently heavy on the east side. Now, this is one tactic that we have seen with the fact that there are 3 HIVs, now 2, on the enemy team. We have seen pushes on the eastern side, and so that's why we went predominantly heavy and left pretty much a fairly light. But fortunately, the west side isn't really dealing with much of a push from the enemy team. I believe they have actually both destroyers. I think they have both the Shimakaze and the Grozavoy over there versus our own Grozavoy. And so at the moment, they're holding down fairly well. They do manage to capture A, but it is probably going to be a very good idea to actually start pushing down towards the C cap. Because at the moment, we do know there is a enemy Yamato and a enemy HIV. So, very good option, especially if you have a Zhao, is the fact that the Zhao has a much better detect than the HIV. The HIV, I love this ship, but it's not a very stealthy ship. This ship has a 12.7 detect, and compared to many of the other cruisers such as the Hindenburg, the Des Moines, Zhao, the Worcester, Minotaur, they obviously have a much lower detect than the HIV. So the HIV works very well with the Zhao and the Worcester because it does have that very powerful punch, but it does benefit from the friendly cruisers who have a much lower detect than itself. So at the moment, we're actually doing a 2-point push. Myself and Chen pushing on the eastern side, while our Montana and Des Moines are going to push down through the center. Now, the enemy team do obviously have a slight point advantage. They are going to start gaining more points more rapidly than we are, but they are predominantly on the western flank, and they're not really doing much to take out our friendly team. Yamato is finally coming in range, and of course, this is kind of what the HI is very good at, is just the ability to do that fire chance and possibly getting those fires, and that's very devastating against Yamato's. And I do run IFHE on my HIV, and I really do think it helps against especially like Stalingrad's and Moskvas. You can do significant HE damage with your HIV against those ships, and against battleships, ooh, it's quite terrifying. So at the moment, we're starting to push quite heavily on the side. Currently, we're outnumbering the enemy team 2-1, so we should be able to at least focus this down. It does look Chen is gaining the most amount of focus right now. He does drop his torps, hopefully, maybe hoping that he'll get some damage on the Yamato. And one thing you'll probably see a lot with the HIV is the fact that she'll do this reverse, kind of how this enemy HIV is currently working right now, where he is kind of sitting at an angle, good enough angle where he won't actually be pinned by most cruiser armor piercing rounds, and he's just gonna reverse, kind of throttle his engine. That's very good play with the HIV, and that's what the HIV is really good at, is the fact of its engine boost just allows it to really throttle and throw off the aim of the enemy team. But fortunately, our Montana has started pushing down, been focusing that HIV, while us cruisers are focusing the Yamato with the HE salvo, getting those nice fire damage and really starting to melt this Yamato very quickly. Now the enemy team really hasn't started reacting. More than likely there is probably going to be a destroyer coming back this way. So we do have to be careful of that. But one major issue with the HIV is she can push, but she can push a little bit too quickly. So you really do have to keep in mind of your speed. And once again, doing the whole reversing tactic is very strong. Now the HIV against Battleship AP, it really does struggle. Its armor can be very much overpinned with Montana and Yamato shells especially, so you do got to be really careful. As you did see in the video prior, you can see how much Yamato can do even against a somewhat angled HIV. Now we did see for a second, looks like No Game is currently being torp dropped. Does look like he is taking some torpedoes, but we do manage to get into C, and we also managed to get into A. So that has swung points back into our favor, and we're really starting to focus down this Yamato as quickly as possible. And once again, you can definitely use the reload module, reload consumable, to really rack up that damage and get additional fires, especially if a Yamato reps his fire a little bit too early. You can get those fires back on it relatively easily. Starting to wear this Yamato down. He's almost going down, and any moment now we should get rid of him, but our friendly Montana, No Game, is, well, he's definitely feeling the pressure. But if we can get rid of this Yamato, even if we lose No Game, we're still ahead at least a ship, so it should not be that big of a deal. I do pop my Hydro just in case there might be any torp drops, and Yamato finally goes down. And it's actually a good idea to start pulling away, because we're very much at an advantage right now. In about a minute and 18 seconds, we'll actually win on points. Okay, a minute and 40 now, we'll win on points. So it's actually probably a really good idea to start pulling away. This is kind of where you have to kind of keep in mind when to push and when not to push. If you are significantly in the lead, this is a time to hold back, go quiet, and try to disengage, because at the moment in a minute and 20 we're gonna win this. So the most danger right now is Wheeze is being focused by the HIVs, and if he can go silent, we should be good. Now I am starting to push towards the middle, trying just once again to disengage, and that's really what it comes down to in clan battles, is when to push, when to pull back. For instance, I've actually witnessed a clan that was almost able to actually win just because they managed to push at the right time and fortunately got some good shots in that we very nearly lost, and that was just because at that time was a good time to push. And like right now, it's a good time to push for them because they're going to lose either way. Right now they're being very cautious. The HIVs should be doing something. They do have a destroyer in at A. Is going to slow down our win a little bit, but once again, there's not much they can do. There's still 2 caps down. Our only real major concern of losing a ship is going to be Wheeze, but I do think he actually does manage to at least disappear. So even if the enemy team gets lucky, they might get lucky with Wheeze, but in about 13 seconds they are going to lose this. So not a bad battle. Good instance on everything as far as pushing, as far as when to pull back. And that is probably going to be it for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button. You guys have a great and fantastic day. GG. Saijan.